Welcome in, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens, to a hell where sin isn't a vice, it's currency. Here, survival means scheming sharper, bleeding quieter, and selling your soul to outplay the devil himself. The rules? There are none. Down here, they say it's better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. Will you seize power or perish trying? Let's find out.
Hellborn Descended by Studio Hex is a gritty tabletop RPG set in a Demonpunk kind of hellscape that mirrors our world's worst flaws. Thinking corporate skyscrapers, asphalt sprawls, cutthroat power struggles, far cry from your traditional fire and brimstone hell setting. It's currently in a Kickstarter, started on 2nd of April, and it's going through the 2nd of May, and they're currently 316% funded, so really good catch in the beginning there. And if you want to play it now, there is currently a quick start light version that you can get through in the link below in this video. Quick overview on the setting itself. It is 7 continents, each representing one of the 7 deadly sins, and the players in this game are agents.
So, what is an agent? Agents are mercenaries that undertake jobs from clients. They typically work in groups known as cabals, which each operate under their own business rules. We'll take a look first at the species in this game. We have the Impusa, which is a human bug-like creature. They specialize in Vita Malefica, which is life, healing, rejuvenation. Then we have the Tori, which are angular, pointy features, long noses, long ears, horns. They specialize in the Vinculum Malefica, which is control, domination, deceit. Then we have the Concubi, which are very humanoid in appearance, though they can change their appearances, and they specialize in advectus, or emotions, manipulations, etc. And then we have the Ballerkin, which are humanoids with made of metal, material, and flesh combined. They specialize in a fire malefica called Ignis, which is burning, destruction, things of that nature. And then last we have the Sinners, which are mostly humanoid in appearance. They have horns and they specialize in a variety of malefica. So that's your species that you're going to use to be the most versatile.
And then for our classes, we have paths or role, right? First up is Blade. So these are going to be your melee focused characters specializing in bladed weaponry or any kind of melee weaponry, right? Then you have your gunners. They are going to specialize in ranged weaponry, most likely guns. Who doesn't want to use a gun in hell, right? Then you have the Malefic. These are your spellcasters. They are going to utilize those spell abilities more often. Then you have the Mastermind. So these are kind of like your battlefield controllers. They're going to help kind of boost up your allies, so to speak, and kind of manipulate the battlefield. And then finally, you have your Wretch. These are your kind of sneaky destructions, right? They're going to get things like sneak attack and things like that to try and kind of weasel in their way into the weak points of their enemies. Speaking of stuff like sneak attack, that is a perk that you can get at level 1 for the Wretch, and all of them do have multiple perk options at character creation to kind of specialize and really define your character's role. We will be covering those in a later video to go into more detail on how you can kind of build out your classes right there at level 1.
And next we have one of the coolest mechanics in this game, the tarot. These help shape your agent's personality. So not necessarily like a background, though you could use parts of it for that. But this does give you some advantages and also disadvantages to your character. So it helps that roleplay side as well as just changing the gamescape a little bit. Each agent picks 2 tarot at creation. One is upright, which is your positive one, and one is called reversed, which is more of the negative connotation. With this quick start light guide, there are currently 10 tarot available, though I believe there are 22 or possibly even more in the full release. Just to name a few that are in this, we have the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Lovers, Strength, Justice, Hermit, Death, the Devil, and the World. I'll try to throw some of those up on the screen so you can pause and read what they are.
I really like that side of it. I love getting, I've said this in previous videos, getting like negative aspects to your character creation, or at all in the character journey is always fun. I think that's where the best roleplay comes from. And then for Maleficas, we mentioned those a couple times. These are your spell abilities that your characters will have access to. There are 4 types, like we mentioned: Ignis, Vita, Adfectus, and Vinculum. Out of all these, you want to pay particular note to the high power abilities. So while all of the normal Maleficas are available to any of the characters. Your high powers are actually specific to your species. So there's actually more power behind the decision of your species when you're picking your class and the abilities you want to have. You want to make sure you're kind of looking forward to what abilities you want on those high powers when you're making your species choice. For example, there is an ability called a Life Eater, which we'll try and throw up on the screen there. That is specific to the Impusa. So if you want an ability like that and you want to focus on those high Vita abilities, you'd want to go with the Impusa. So I thought that was a really cool way to tie in the species as more than just what you choose at like level 1 and then it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, definitely love the Malefica side of this as well. I think that and the tarot obviously are two of the coolest parts, but there's much more cool stuff we'll get into in here a little bit. Next up, we have the characteristics, which are the attributes in this game system. We have flesh, which is the character's strength, physical prowess, and endurance. Skin, which is the character's agility, reflexes, and manual dexterity. Heart, which is the character's charisma, empathy, and ability to communicate. Mind, which is the character's intelligence, wits, and ability to perceive. And then soul, which is the character's spirit, infernal aura, and malefic potential. There are two methods for distributing these characteristics, the fast method and the detailed method. But essentially, you get 11 points to allocate, and you can allocate anywhere from 1 to 6 into any of these characteristics at the start.
And then just to round out character creation, right, we have the equipment packages based on your path. This allows you to kind of pick and choose the exact style you want within your path as they are tied to what your character specializes in, right? So for Blade, the equipment packages comes with things like a longsword or a battle axe or short swords and like batons. So you get to get a package tailored to your path, but still have options on the kind of play style and what weapons you want to use. So I thought that was cool that the packages were based more so on the path in the class as opposed to like your background and things like that that you'll see in other systems. Like it's actually tailored to the character and it's kind of intuitive in that you're not making any wasted choices, right? Because I think in some games you'll like pick a background just for like maybe a feature or a trait and doesn't really matter the choice, whereas this one it actually ties into what you're building up.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely interesting. I love the way the equipment packages work. Next, we'll just take a jump into the core mechanics.
All right, so let's start with the basics, right? The dice system. This is a 3d6 system. So every time you are asked for a check, you'll roll your 3d6s, you'll add your attribute, any relevant bonuses, advantages, things like that, and then you just have to either meet or beat the difficulty rating that is set by the game master. So real quick and simple and easy.
Yeah, we also have group tests in this game system, which works similar to what you might have experienced before. One player serves as the primary roller, and then any participants can add their relative scores into the total. Usually, you'll see this with things that are intended for a higher difficulty rating.
And then as far as advantage and disadvantage goes, work similar to other systems that we covered. They are a stacking source that cancel each other out. So if you have, say, 3 sources of advantage, 2 sources of disadvantage, that will equal out to 1 source of advantage. So it actually pays off to try and stack the odds in your favor as you're going to get more and more bonuses.
And now we're going to talk about one of the other cooler things that I mentioned earlier, the critical system in this game. So, as you guessed it, this is 3d6. So a critical success is called a satanic success. I love that. And that's when you roll 666 on the dice. Can't say that without smiling. What this means is that you automatically succeed on whatever you're trying to do. And then those tarot cards that we mentioned, they come into play here as well. You draw a tarot card whenever you're making a non-malefic or non-spellcasting attack. And depending on what that tarot is, that effect happens. For example, the priestess, the target cannot use powers for 1 round. The lover, your ally gains +2 on their next attack, and so on. On the other side of the dice with 111, that means you get a fiendish failure, which auto fail, and what are there other complications the GM decides that you should face.
No, I really like the tarot card side of this, right? And we talked about it at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then rolling it into the critical. I think that's so cool that you get like more to your criticals than just you got some extra damage and you succeed and you're done. I love that. It's like a random, almost like a wild magic sense kind of
Yeah, it's super
add
cool.
on to all your good checks. Yeah, and then obviously the fiendish failures is cool. Some games, a one is just a one and you fail, but I like that there is a complication to it that the GM gets to add in. Hopefully they're nice to you, but I mean, you are in hell, so who knows what you get. But
Yeah. We'll also talk a little bit about actions. So, for example, to make an initiative test, it would be 3d6 plus your mind modifier. Any ties would go to whoever rolled the highest. Nothing crazy there. That works as usual. And then for your actions in a turn, you get one action, one swift action, one reaction, and one free movement per turn. So I really love the free movement part of this game. Swift action, for example, is something that's quick, doesn't require a lot of thinking or precision, and full action is something that you use to take your whole round. So you get that one action for the round. An action equals an attack, an interact, a move, a malefic power, or stabilization of a creature.
and then to kind of jump in specifically to the reactions, this part I really liked about the combat side of things. Some systems, don't really have a lot of reaction options, at least at level one. It's usually just things like an opportunity attack. But in here, you can do particularly three things. You can block. So this is in response to being hit by a melee attack. You get to roll a number of d6s equal to your flesh score, and you get to actually reduce the damage of the attack that's hitting you. You can also try and dodge. So this is a response to just being targeted by any attack. This is a skin test, and the difficulty rating is the equal to the attack roll that was made against you. And if you succeed, you get to move a space and avoid all damage. You actually get to dodge out of the way. And then finally, your Overwatch ability. So this is kind of like that opportunity attack. However, you get to use it both on ranged and melee. So if you are using ranged attacks, when someone moves into your line of sight, and if you're making a melee attack, when they move out of your melee range, you get to make an opportunity attack. I really like that because it gives you one for the Overwatch, multiple ways to get the opportunity attack, especially when you're ranged, and then the ability to like kind of block and reduce incoming damage for anybody, I think is really cool. Usually that's just kind of limited to one class, if anyone at all. Right on that side, we have the different damage types. So you have physical damage, and then you have fire, toxic, cold, electric, and mental. So multiple different damage types, multiple different sources of damage. So nice spread there.
Next, we have what you might know as conditions. In this game, they're referred to as ailments, and we've picked a few just to talk to. First, we have bleeding. So while you're bleeding, you suffer 1d6 physical damage, which can't be reduced by any means, and you take this at the start of your turn unless you receive some amount of healing. Then we have shaken. While shaken, you're weak to mental damage unless you have resistance, where in that case you would take the damage normally. And mortal. While you're mortal at the start of every turn, your mortality increases by 1. When it reaches 5, your body succumbs to its wounds, and your soul exits its vessel as you die for good. More on that right now, Fry.
Right, so that leads us into the death mechanic. This, I think, has been one of my favorite death mechanics reading through all these games. But basically, how this works is once you reach 0 trauma, which is your health pool, you gain the mortal ailment, like he said. The mortal ailment cannot be removed while you are at 0 trauma. So while you're at 0 health, the mortal condition will stay on you. While you're mortal, you'll gain that 1 mortality each turn until you are stabilized or you are healed. To stabilize someone, it's just a difficulty rating 14 for a mind test. If you succeed, you clear the trauma, or you gain a trauma, sorry, and you clear 2 mortality. On a satanic success, you get 1 plus a 1d6 roll to add to their trauma health pool, and you can clear all mortality on that. However, if you get a fiendish failure, their mortality automatically will increase by 1. Like you said, once you hit 5 mortality, you are dead. Mortality will also reset during your downtime recovery or by returning to maximum trauma by any means. So if you get big source of healing or anything like that, anything that's going to raise your trauma back to full, you'll also clear all your mortality. So very cool system here. It also, really boosts healing as a need, right? I think a lot of games, especially with things like D&D, right, yo-yoing, going up and down is kind of fine here, there, but here, like you're gaining this every turn. You're not gaining this every round. So every turn that passes, as your other players go in, even the enemies, your mortality is bumping up. So you really need to get on them, or your allies will die very quickly.
Yeah, so definitely love talking about this game, and we will be talking about it some more. So that's going to wrap it up for this just quick introductory video. We are going to put out some more content. Specifically, I want to do a video on the agent creation from start to finish, just so we can really flesh that out and see what that looks like. But we will leave you with some final thoughts. So, why should you play this game? Well, it's badass if you couldn't tell. I already mentioned it, but I love the tarot. I love the satanic success. I actually like the species quite a bit and how the Malefica is more specialized to each one. So it kind of gives you a reason to pick one over the other, but not really an advantage because you get the high powers with whichever one you pick. And if you can't decide, you have the center to fall back on. And, that's more of like the regular human in a way. So very cool game, I think.
Yeah, I like the kind of like to tie into the high powers too. I like not only can you become super specialized, right? Like if all you care about is I want to be the best healer and that's all I care about, you pick your Impusa, you pick the class that you want to be, and that's that. But if you want to say be a mix of both, right? Like I want to be a blade that has some backup healing. So now you can pick your path, then you can pick your race and combine those two without sacrificing anything crazy, right? And like obviously if you want to optimize, you optimize, but I like the separation between species and the path. It allows you to build up both, so you kind of have almost a dual play style to go in. Um, all that, like the character side of this is super cool. Like I'm excited to get into the lore, like the bigger lore stuff as we get the full book. But just reading through like actions and combat, like the way combat plays out and the characters are built is super cool. Very unique. Like you see those standard TTRPG elements, but I think this is a very unique, one of the most unique ones I've seen reading through is the different character options.
Yeah, it stands out on its own, and it has a shotgun, so that's pretty cool. But we'll definitely check the description because we're going to put the links for everything included in this quick light as links to a Spotify playlist they use for inspiration, the Discord, the Kickstarter. We'll do our best to put all that down in the description, so please check that out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep that shield wall strong.